What's up, everybody? What's up? Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Welcome to the live stream. Hit that like button as you come in. Do me that favor. Smash that like button as you come in. Say where you're watching from. Normal rules of the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Normal rules of engagement. Be respectful. Be cordial. Keep your comments short. Don't flag the AI mod because it's the worst. And I can't do anything about it when it blocks you guys. And yeah, just make sure that you interact with each other in the chat. Make sure that you're respectful. We're not being disrespectful to one another because that's the only thing that can get you banned from the chat. And other than that, I don't censor you guys. I don't kick you guys out of chat other than for disrespect. So welcome to the daily live stream. I look forward to getting started. So first up on the menu, you guys see the live stream title. Presidente Maduro was captured. Oh my God! I'm not laughing because the man was captured. It's just that President Trump, man. I can't oh man. All right, we got news to watch. So I'm gonna probably react to this a little differently. I'm debating between tomorrow and Monday because there's something else I have. But it's like this is not very shocking to me at all. It's just not, because just watching President Trump since he's become president, if you're watching the moves that he's making, then this stuff makes sense to you and it doesn't shock you, right? Some people are like, I don't understand the point of Venezuela. What's the point of Venezuela? And I'm like, I mean, surely you people know that oil is a great part of it, right? But, you know, I digress. Let's look at a couple of clips we got. I got some clips about him exiting the plane when he arrives in the United States. I have clips of other world leaders reacting to what President Trump did. They're not happy, actually. And this is not shocking to me, but what is shocking is just, I guess, how brazen they're saying what President Trump did. Like, they really do feel like he just went way out of line because he basically captured the dude. So it's interesting to see how the world leaders are acting, specifically like the leader of China. Putin has something to say about it. So this is all going to be very interesting. We're going to jump right in. Let's take a look at the first clip of the live stream. The first one up, let me show you guys. Well, let's look at Maduro lands in New York first. So let's look at that one first because the other one I have, he's live. And then we'll take a look at what the world leaders have to say.
Texas is feeling unwelcome. Now Taxes is an open door to new TurboTax stores. Meet our experts. They do your taxes, so you can walk out with confidence. Now this is Taxes.
If you don't understand the rules of power, you will certainly lose to someone who does.
We are now watching people leave the plane, and I'm just trying to see if one of the people leaving that plane, surrounded by federal agents, is the Venezuelan former president Nicolas Maduro. Right now, it looks like it is agents who have been going up and down those stairs. We know that the DEA, a huge part of this, and we've been seeing their jackets as well. While we are waiting to see the moment when Nicolas Maduro leaves that plane, heads towards the next phase of the system in place, the justice system in the United States in place, let's just watch here for a second, because this is the most activity we have seen this evening of people going in and out of that plane that has flown the president, ostensibly his wife, who were snatched from their beds in the middle of the night after strikes on Venezuela by the United States. The president announcing that, also announcing that they did not go to Congress first, not even the Gang of Eight, to let them know that this was about to happen. But indeed, it did happen, and we are seeing the result of it here. Very hard to see, as you might imagine. It is now dark on the East Coast in New York, where this is all taking place in Newburgh, New York. But we are watching as they are it looks as if they are walking backwards. And so the person there that may be beyond the man with the backpack there. You see one agent walking backwards, and you see someone flanked by quite a few people coming down the stairs gingerly. That may well be Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro taking his first steps onto U.S. soil. That appears to be what's happening, but we cannot guarantee it, as this is the most activity we have seen leaving that plane after quite a few minutes there, some maybe 20, 30 minutes that we've been watching this. But this is the largest group of folks that we've seen leaving that plane, a remarkable, remarkable moment in history. I want to go now to CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, who has been, he's a former prosecutor working at SDNY. He knows the system very, very well. As you are watching this, just give us a sense of the moment that we are seeing here and what will happen next as they take Maduro from this aircraft ostensibly to another, correct?
Yes, Sarah. Well, there is obviously vast political, international, diplomatic significance to what's happening here. There's also really important legal significance to this very moment we're witnessing, because there's an important concept in federal prosecution called venue. And what that means is you have to charge a case in the right federal district out of the 94 federal districts in the United States. This is, of course, the Southern District of New York. Now, there's two ways prosecutors can get venue. The first one is if they can show that some part of the conspiracy happened within that district. But the second way, and I think this is what we're seeing right here, is if the person is being brought in from a foreign country, the first place they touch down and touch American soil, there is automatic venue there. Now, this is a base in Newburgh, New York. That's within the Southern District of New York. It's about 90 or so miles, 70 to 90 miles north of New York City. And so when I was in the Southern District of New York, we would use this very airport all the time if somebody who was wanted, somebody who was under indictment, was captured in a foreign country and then brought in. We would bring them to this airport because this ensures venue in the Southern District of New York. You heard President Trump earlier today at his press conference say there would have to be a decision about whether this President Maduro would be tried in federal court in Florida or New York. He's already been indicted in New York, and this to me confirms that this case, this trial, will be handled in the Southern District, New York.
We are going to re-rack these pictures because as you were talking, we just saw President Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president. We could see that it was indeed him, looking like he was wearing the same exact outfit that we saw earlier, a picture sent out by the administration, but a remarkable, remarkable moment where we're seeing him walking on U.S. soil flanked by more than a dozen federal agents. This is moments ago. I know it is very dark, hard to see, but eventually you will start to see it lighten up just a bit, and you'll see most people surrounding him are wearing black clothing, but he is not. He is wearing something that is lighter, a gray color, or it looks like gray, potentially light blue, but similar to what we saw in the pictures that were sent out by the administration. You are seeing him there flanked by so many agents and taking steps very slowly as they take him to the next position. I think we have Jim Sciutto back with us to give us some sense of just the bigger picture in all of this, because there are so many pictures and questions that people have about what happened here and what this is going to mean, not only to Venezuela, where you have seen some folks.
This last summer, I began to use Claude as a kind of soundboard to help me wrap my brain around how to do.
Who are gleeful, happy to see him gone, felt that they lived in hell with his administration, but there are others that still support him there, and what it means for the United States, where President Trump has said the United States will now run Venezuela for a time. Jim, this seems to be a huge shift in U.S. policy here.
No question. Let's talk about the ripple effects, right? The multiple ripples emanating out from this. So the first one, the most obvious one, is in Venezuela. Who leads the country now? Who runs the country? How does the U.S. run it if the president is true to his word here? Does that involve military forces on the ground, a long-term political engagement with that country to set it on its way to elections, the president seems to be referencing here? That's an enormous task. Then go out from there, because there is a direct connection between Venezuela and Cuba, because Cuba depends in large part on Venezuelan oil money to run itself. Is Cuba the next target? In what way? Just economic pressure or military pressure as well? There's a whole host of U.S. forces in the Caribbean now, quite close to Cuba as well. We know that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has an enormous interest there. Is that potentially a next target? Then you emanate further out from there to how do Russia and China, both of whom have direct interests in Venezuela, Russia in particular, from a security standpoint, there have been Russian forces on the ground there in the past, but also direct financial and economic interests there, given oil.
Oh, they're not happy, and that's what we're going to react to. We're going to react to what some of the world leaders had to say about President Trump doing this. They're pretty upset about it. Now, I think this is funny because how upset some of the world leaders are, because they just don't appreciate it. It was a power move by Trump. They don't appreciate it. Now, you can call it what you want. Some people are like, oh my God, he's racist. Oh my God, the dude's a thief. Oh my God, the dude's breaking the law. And it's like, none of them are true. We went over this before on a couple of live streams. The President of the United States does not always have to go through Congress to authorize a hit. We've already known this. Now, some people are like, yeah, this is different, but this is a kidnapping. And it's like, no, essentially it's not. It's kind of the same thing. He wouldn't have to go through Congress to do something like this either. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because some people are like, well, is it the drugs or is it the oil? And I already said it's the oil, right? But we're going to let the story pan out and we're going to prove itself, right? I don't think it's just the oil, but you got people saying things like President Trump is using drugs as an excuse to get to the oil. Do I think that at all that's a possibility? I do. I do think that is a possibility, but let's let the story tell itself.
Ties, how do they react? Do they attempt to stand in the way of this going forward? Could they cede an opposition to, let's say, U.S. forces are on the ground to disrupt the aftermath of this? It's possible. There's precedent for that. But also then how do they read the U.S. approach to the other countries where the U.S., Russia, and China are coming into conflict? Ukraine, Taiwan, potentially. Do they read this as the U.S. being less interested in those conflicts, therefore perhaps more amenable to Russian control of or progress in Ukraine or Chinese threats to Taiwan? You know, those concentric circles of the ripples, Sarah Seidner, go out quite far from Venezuela and, of course, what we're watching right here in Newburgh, New York. And goodness, I was writing down on a piece of paper here a rough list of other U.S. operations to remove the leaders of other countries. Put Iraq there, right? That was messy, to say the least. Panama worked out. It was relatively, short, minimal cost, but a much smaller country. Grenada, again, got to go back to the 80s here, much, much smaller country. To some degree, some parallels with the Osama bin Laden raid, right? And that you had elite military forces go in that case, of course, kill the leader, although there was some talk of capturing him, each with different ramifications and outcomes. But to some degree, with the exception of Iraq, this is one of the more ambitious U.S. regime change efforts in recent memory.
Yeah, and we saw what happened in Iraq. I mean, there are just so many questions, and a lot of the members of Congress are asking those questions at this hour, wondering why they were not alerted to this happening, especially since the president himself is saying that the U.S. will now take over in Venezuela for a time as they work.
Now, if you guys got a chance to watch it on, I know the YouTube channel, if you went to Washington Post Live or the White House Live. My apologies, guys. This is where I got a chance to see it. So this was playing earlier today. I actually wanted to go live while it was live, but I was also in the middle of something with my wife, so I couldn't just kind of stop what I was doing and go live the way I wanted to. But President Trump did mention that during a live stream that the United States would run Venezuela. He does have some doubt about the vice president because she was appointed by Maduro, so I don't know if she's going to stay in place. Or if he said something about there would be a group of people running Venezuela, and the reporters did press him pretty hard. I do want to take a look at some of the reporters talking to Trump, because I do have a clip where we can take a look at that. But there were certain things that he just said, like Marco Rubio came up for a little bit and spoke, and he spoke about how he hopes everybody realizes that President Trump is not the type of president that just talks, like he has action behind his talking, so people need to be aware of things like that. There were a couple things that was said in the live stream. We're going to find some of that feedback between Trump and the reporters. I'll make sure I find that before we get off live.
Out who will then lead that country. Jim Sciutto, please stick with us. I want to go, though, to Evan Perez, who is stationed outside the detention center in Brooklyn, which is about 70 miles from Newburgh. And we understand that from the plane that you saw Maduro being taken off of in that remarkable moment, he's gone inside of that building, but we understand he will be taking a helicopter. He will be flown by helicopter to this facility eventually tonight. Evan, what are you learning where you are?
That's right, Sarah. We anticipate that eventually this evening we're going to see Nicolas Maduro arrive here at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This is the secure federal facility where the feds hold people who are about to be tried. This is the only secure federal facility in this area right now. And what we anticipate is happening right now. You saw Maduro was met there with a team from the Drug Enforcement Administration. These are agents who have been working on this case. They've been after Maduro, investigating Maduro for more than a decade. There's a number of other people, including a former Venezuelan intelligence chief, who have pleaded guilty over the years as part of this larger case, a case that essentially has been built on over the years with information. You can see certainly in this indictment that was unsealed today, you can see some of the information that they've been developing over the years, including examples, what they say, what prosecutors say was Maduro essentially using the diplomatic protection of the Venezuelan government to protect drug traffickers.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Jones, and welcome to the Distress Tolerance module. The goals of this module I do want to go to Omar Jimenez, who is following these helicopters landing in New York, which you were looking at just moments ago. Omar, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so you heard John Miller talking about 3 helicopters that took off from Newburgh, headed out this way. We just saw 3 helicopters land, matching roughly the time it would take to fly by helicopter here. What you're looking at right now is what has been an increased law enforcement, one that's increased pretty steadily over the last few hours since we've been out here. We actually have been pushed much further back. This is the heliport here where all of this, the variety of law enforcement, predominantly NYPD, but we've seen federal officers here as well, including DEA agents, a mass of them that just came in within the last few minutes to this area as well. We're waiting to see, we can hear the helicopters. We saw them land just beyond our view here, 3 of them, it appeared. So we're waiting for them to go into what would be sort of this indoor area, and then they would come into presumably one of these vehicles where they would then go for processing here at a federal building in New York City. Now, for those that aren't familiar with sort of the geography of Manhattan and New York City, we're on the west side of Manhattan, what's known as the West Side Highway. Both lanes in both directions have been closed off by law enforcement to this point. This is typically a very busy area. We are now seeing lights from the New York Police Department turn on. That has not been the case previously to this point. We can still hear the motor of the helicopters to this, but I can't stress enough, this has been the highest level of law enforcement presence we have seen to this point, one that has been steadily increasing over the past few hours, Jessica.
Yeah, and Omar, we see the DEA agents there walking past the cameras as well. Okay, Omar, stay with us. Let's bring John Miller back in to help us understand what we're looking at here. John, Omar describing the scene. We're in the middle. It's actually very close to where we're broadcasting from right now. It's right behind our building. But we're in the middle of Manhattan where this is happening. Take us through what you're seeing in this scene.
Well, what you're seeing is a joint force. You have DEA agents, FBI agents, and a contingent of NYPD people broken into specialized units that are going to make this critical move. Obviously, this is done under very tight security because you're dealing with an individual who is charged with being in league with some of the most violent drug cartels in the world, who is also a world leader in his own right, or was at least until this morning. But what you're looking at there is a armored vehicle that is what they call a Bearcat. This is an armored vehicle that contains what they call a CAT team, a counter assault team, which is part of this motorcade. So you'll have a vehicle that will contain President Maduro and his wife, maybe in a separate vehicle. You'll have the escort vehicles, which are from NYPD's Highway Patrol. They have the route between where they are and the location they are going to frozen. As we watch that move out, we see the van, and then we're going to see the armored vehicle following that, which is the counter assault team.
They're driving to Brooklyn now? Is that the plan?
Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith.
They're driving to a separate location. For security reasons, we're not going to get into that location on the air live, but that location is a secure law enforcement facility. They are going to go through the booking process there, and then they are going to go to...
And here we could just see the travel happening. So I just wanted to show it to you guys just from a different angle. And just so you can see like kind of like the barricade go by. You know, you see an ambulance there, whole bunch of police cars, whole bunch of FBI, whole bunch of government officials kind of just following by.
That other location. So you see the armored vehicles, you see the van, you see the ambulance, which is part of the contingent because they've already, had to deal with some medical issues along the way.
It is pretty remarkable. I want to go to Omar for a second as we're watching this happen. Omar, this is a Saturday night in Manhattan, and this is just an incredible law enforcement, likely again with the now ousted president of Venezuela having traveled here. Just describe the scene for us. This is somewhat surreal.
It really is. And for those that have even just been passing by on the street, I mean, you see a lot of things in New York City, but the amount of police and law enforcement presence just in this part of Manhattan is even mind-blowing for those that live here in the city. And if you were following that the motorcade essentially that appeared to hold Maduro and his wife, but they have all cleared out of this area. It was that quick. And I can tell you when we were a little bit closer earlier in the day, we were able to get basically right up to the heliport area. We saw them sort of what appeared to be tracing a path from the exit of the heliport through the gate over there, and the way they positioned their vehicles, it appeared that it was just going to be a very quick transfer from that heliport into the vehicles, pull out, and that is exactly what we just saw happen a few minutes ago here. Yeah. And as you saw, the level of law enforcement presence just going down the West Side Highway from the armored vehicles to that variety of law enforcement, it's astounding to see on a city street here in New York, Jessica.
Yeah, it certainly is. I want to go back to John Miller if he's still with us, because I have another logistical question for him, John, which is, when I lived in D.C., you were used to seeing motorcades, and they were very used to clearing streets there. Obviously, New York can do that because it gets its fair share of dignitaries as well. But to move through the New York streets like this, what does that take for law enforcement? How do they keep everybody safe?
In New York City,
I said barricade. This is how you guys know I'm tired. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that motorcade is pretty early. But that motorcade is pretty large. And when she asked us how much manpower would that take, I wouldn't say like in New York City it wouldn't take a lot, because It's not like growing up, I saw motorcades a lot. Really, the only place I saw them for the most part was in Manhattan, right? Sometimes they went through other parts of New York City, but it's not like you would see motorcades going through the Bronx. The closest you would get to that would be a large funeral. So I know that this took a lot of police presence because they're saying that this is the most that they've seen in some time, right? So we know New York has already been struggling with the police and crime as far as like the whole defund the police thing and what New Yorkers stand for when it comes to cops and the people that they're putting in office right now. Mom Donnie is not somebody who is a huge fan of the police. So if we start seeing some defund the police type of stuff come out, that wouldn't be shocking to me either. I also want to go over to the White House. I don't know how many of you guys got a chance to actually watch President Trump speak right after this attack. Well, shortly after, because it happened 10:46 Eastern Standard Time yesterday. So I actually want to go to the White House because I got a chance to watch it live shortly after this clip so you guys could hear some of the stuff President Trump and Marco Rubio had to say.
Did he? And I say that as someone who used to be in charge of these movements for various presidents, including presidents of the United States. This is a very experienced team. The NYPD Highway Patrol team is used to being able to freeze a route or navigate a route that's unfrozen. In this case, the route between where they landed and where they're going was frozen. They have a lot of experience in that, and that's for dignitaries. This is different, Jessica. This is a high threat prisoner in charge in a major narcotics trafficking case who happens to be formally, as a few hours ago, president of a sovereign nation in our region. So that is very similar to what they did with the El Chapo situation, where you had the head of a major cartel. This is the kind of person that had a lot of money behind them, the resources to arrange people who could either attack such a motorcade, try to free a prisoner, try to stage a breakout. So layers and layers and layers are added on. We saw a lot of them right there in terms of the armored vehicle, the counter-assault team, in case there was an assault on motorcade, the numerous blockages of traffic between where they are and where they're going. But that is something that they've experienced, and you will see that as they move from that jail to the court for the arraignment on Monday. And if there's a trial, you may see it on a daily basis.
Right. It's really fascinating. All right, John, thank you. I do want to go to Jim Sciutto as well as we're watching this play out. Jim?
That would be pretty interesting. I wonder if it would be a day-to-day trial and how much access they would give the American people to that trial. I would actually want to see that, right? They prosecute our citizens all of the time on a day-to-day basis during their trials. And sometimes, for the most part, we get access. So I'm interested to see in how they're going to handle Maduro.
Jessica, I would just say we have to remember how we got to this moment of those helicopters landing on the West Side Highway. Nicolas Maduro was president of Venezuela, a Latin American country of tens of millions of people, until this morning, when he and his wife were taken out of their bedroom by the U.S. Delta Force in a highly complex military operation to, in effect, decapitate the leadership.
Chad, this is going to get so crazy because in a little bit, I'm going to play what some of the U.S. leaders had to say about President Trump doing this. And they are pissed off, bro. Like, some of them are like, the U.S. crossed the line. I got to know, Chad, how would we feel if somebody tried to come over to the United States and take Donald Trump and Melania? I want to know how would we feel about that. That's crazy work because literally that China's pissed. Like, Russia has something to say about it. And I'm like, oh, Lord, this is going to get interesting real quick.
Of a major country in Latin America. It is a remarkable, I don't want to say ending, but just next chapter, right? This arrival in New York for prosecution in an enormous event with a whole long list of questions still to be answered. One of the most prominent of which is who's going to replace Nicolas Maduro, and who does the U.S., which carried out this operation, want to replace Nicolas Maduro? Because it was the position of the Trump administration till a short time ago, till weeks, perhaps months ago, that it should be the opposition. For instance, the Nobel Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado, and there were public statements of support. Those have waned. And today, this morning, the president, as he announced this operation and Maduro's removal, was praising Maduro's deputy, the vice president of that country, Delcy Rodriguez, saying that she wants to do everything she can, and I'm paraphrasing to some degree here, to make Venezuela great again. This is quite remarkable if that would be this administration's position, to prosecute Maduro, bring him to the U.S., replace him with a vice president from that same regime. We'll see. And then we'll also see what the U.S. investment is going to be in assuring such a transition or moving on to new elections. He says he's willing to put U.S. troops on the ground. How many and for how long? Quite a remarkable several hours here, given what we're seeing now in New York, but what it means for what Maduro left behind.
This is the Skylight calendar. This is our family calendar. This is our to-do list. This is our group.
Moving moment by moment out of Venezuela, the de facto leader there.
All right, let's look at the what the VP has to say. President Trump he's iffy about the VP because they were already asking about this during the live stream at the White House. And he says he doesn't know what he's going to do because she was appointed by Maduro. So he doesn't know if he's going to leave her in place or not. He's saying she's suspect and that Venezuela will actually be led by a group of people. So let's take a look at this really quick.
Has now for the first time appeared on camera demanding the immediate release of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, calling their capture a kidnapping. Right now, meantime, Maduro, in that image you see him, it was posted by President Trump. He is on his way to the United States to face drug trafficking charges in the Southern District of New York. Meanwhile, the vice president of Venezuela, Maduro's vice president, her name is Delcy Rodriguez. She just spoke. We've got the audio in now. I want to play for you what she just said to Trump.
Why?
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Coming out against Trump. And that is
of President Nicolas.
She just spoke. We've got the audio in now. I want to play for you what she just said to Trump.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Coming out against Trump. And that is extremely significant, not just because she saw what happened hours ago to the guy on top of her, but also because President Trump
I mean, you gotta love him or hate him. He's right? President Trump is like, she really doesn't have a choice. Oh my dude.
we got a statement from Vice President Delcy Rodriguez of Venezuela, which I just played. So now we're awaiting Trump's response to that. What does this actually mean? You are there in Mar-a-Lago with the president. What's the response from him?
Yeah, and I don't think it will be a favorable response from the president. You know, he did sound fairly confident that Rodriguez would be going along with this plan. You know, after that press conference, he gave a phone call to the New York Post, and actually Rodriguez came up in that conversation. He was asked if U.S. troops would be on the ground in Venezuela running that country, and what he said was, quote, "No, if Maduro's vice president, if the vice president does what we want, we won't have to do that." And then he goes on to say, we're prepared. We have a second wave that's much bigger than the first one. And so I do think, now that Rodriguez is coming out and suggesting that she is not, in fact, on board with what the United States is doing down there, the president does seem to be setting up the prospect that the U.S. could go in with a second round of strikes. He alluded to that in his press conference. He said that perhaps he didn't think it would be necessary, but saying pretty explicitly that he was ready to order that if the remnants of the Venezuelan regime didn't necessarily, accede to the U.S. Running the country, which is what he said they would be doing. I think all of this just underscores how little we know about what exactly the U.S. role is going to be in Venezuela going forward. After the president came out and really kind of shocked all of us by saying that we, the United States, in his words, would be running Venezuela, and then offered essentially no details about what that meant. This back and forth now between the president and the vice president of Venezuela only, I think, emphasizes how little we understand of how this will all proceed going forward. And now, of course, you hear the president suggesting that there could be a U.S. military role to ensure that the U.S. is able to run Venezuela. He said in that press conference he wasn't afraid of boots on the ground. When I followed up with him and asked, does he envision a prolonged U.S. military presence in that country, he didn't really answer, and he sort of pivoted to talking about the oil, which we know has been sort of a preoccupation of his in Venezuela. And so, this is all setting up quite a dramatic, I think, day or week ahead as the U.S. works to ascertain who exactly is claiming power in Venezuela and works to assert their own power that the president now suggests that the U.S. has in Caracas, but without necessarily explaining what exactly that looks like and what exactly that could mean for the U.S. military going forward.
Kevin Liptak, thank you very much in Palm Beach by Mar-a-Lago, where you were in that press conference with the president, an hour-long press conference, I should note. Let's go live now back to Caracas, where Mary Mina has been on the ground for us throughout the day. Mary, as you and I have been talking over these past almost 6 hours, you have been saying that the vice president had been calling in to state media, but state media was, essentially not really programming, that she had just called in. There was speculation that she had left the country, even gone to Moscow. But then it turns out she is in Venezuela, and she appears to be at the vice president's quarters, and she had this meeting, and she was flanked by all of the military and other power players, including the Interior Ministry, and she gives that defiant.
So she was sworn in a little bit. She has a conversation. The conversation goes well, and then she goes live and she says, "We demand our president back." Right. Meanwhile, she's just been sworn in as the president, so she should just say, "Hey, we want Maduro and his wife back." Right. This ain't gonna happen. You see the chat going crazy, right? I'm cracking up because the chat's like, nope, ain't gonna happen. And it's really not. Like, I don't really see what she could put up to change President Trump's mind. If anything, I'm curious to see if they're going to be tried, if it's going to be a day-to-day trial. But all of that, like, we want our president back. Like, yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go with my chat on that. Maduro ain't coming back, chat. Maduro's staying in the United States.
Statement. What are you hearing from people? Do people buy it in Venezuela?
Well, we need to remember that Venezuelans are used to live under authoritarian regime, so there's fear in the streets that something could happen in the coming hours, either from the Trump administration that implied a second wave of attacks, or coming from the government itself and its supporters. So the immediate reaction of our regular Venezuelan is to stay at home, to stay locked at home, waiting for the developments that keep changing with every hour in Caracas. Many people have decided to go to supermarkets to stock for food because they don't know how many days or hours this could last. And also, they're calling from these loyalists to Nicolas Maduro, saying they will not surrender. And that was a strong statement coming from the Venezuelan vice president, saying that they have the law behind them, and basically denying all the words that President Donald Trump said about her, talking with them, or making some sort of negotiations with the Trump administration. She says that they are calling for a strong response from the international community and from the people inside of Venezuela.
Now, Mary, obviously there's opposition. There's the fact that Nicolas Maduro actually wasn't the president; he was the de facto president. But it obviously someone had won that election in the summer of 2024. So there's a lot of breaks within the country on where people stand. But even in that context, Mary, where does Delcy Rodriguez stand? Does she have credibility? Does she have standing? Does she have any of those things coming into this?
No, she just got sworn in.
Well, she's witnessed as a strong leader after Nicolas Maduro. She's been in several positions, not only as a vice president, but in several ministers. She's been the selected one in case of Nicolas Maduro is out of power, as we are witnessing. What
I mean, there is something, like, I follow this. There is something to be said that she is the one that's selected if something were to happen to Maduro. But I don't think that she has much ground to stand on here because President Trump doesn't trust her. So I want to go over to the White House briefing after this so you guys can see some of the things that President Trump and Marco Rubio said after this capture. But before that, I want to look at some of the world leaders, how pissed off they are at President Trump that he actually did this before we go to the White House. Because Russia and China, they all do have something to say about this. They're pissed. They think President Trump crossed the line. They're like, he went too far. He's crossed the line. So people do have something to say about this. But here's the thing. Because she was appointed by Maduro, President Trump doesn't trust her. He already said it. He's like, I don't know if she's going to stay in place. He already wants a group of people, he said, to run Venezuela. He hasn't been super clear about who this group of people might be, but he doesn't trust her because she was put in place by Maduro.
Hugo Chavez did in his time when he left for Cuba. He said, if something happened to me, you have to vote for Nicolas Maduro. Right now, we are learning that the multiple decisions taken by the government with the absence of Nicolas Maduro is to lead the country, the Venezuelan Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez. She is witnessed as a smart woman with knowledge in economics, but she's a strong leader. She's in charge, for example, the security forces that are detained more than 2,000 people over the past year in Venezuela after the presidential elections.
Well, and that's a significant point, as you point out, not just running the oil, but also running the security forces and what that might mean in terms of her ability to maintain their loyalty, which is going to be in such question here over these next hours and days. Mary, thank you very much. And we'll be checking in with Mary, of course, constantly here as our coverage continues.
All right, so let's go over to the White House for a little bit. I want you guys to look at some of the stuff President Trump said after this capture, those of you who didn't get to see it live.
We appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer, all perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, it's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, maybe like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea. Just sort of.
So as many people wanted to be upset about this, look at the way Trump just said that so nonchalantly. He said they knew we were coming. We had many ships out there. There was a huge presence out there of U.S. ships. And a lot of people saw that. So some people were shocked by this. And they're like, oh my God, President Trump just stole Maduro. And other people are like, yeah, we kind of knew that it was going that route anyway.
Waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have, and you see that even if you just look at the boats. We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. Each we have, and you see with capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have, and you see that even if you just look at the boats. We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the
97%. That is a nasty rating. So what is it, ladies and gentlemen? Is it the drugs or the oil? The drugs or the oil? The drugs or the oil? The oil and the drugs. Which one is it? Because everybody's like, yes, we have Venezuela. Yes, we have the oil. Yes, we have the drugs. Which one is it? Is it everything? Somebody said neither. Blood and oil. Christopher, shout out to Christopher the Lawful. Neither. Dottie Bean, blood and oil. Oh, the petroleum too. Jules said it's the oil clearly. Yeah, it's true. That's shout out to Jackie Brown. He said we don't care. Jackie, you're not lying. Some people don't care. They're like, President Trump's crazy and we already knew this was going to happen.
The country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela. And that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, with
somebody in the chat said, did he really capture Maduro? Yes, he actually did capture Maduro. Here's the thing. He said he wants it to be judicious because that's all they care about. I'm not going to lie. Earlier in someone else's chat, I think I was watching Benny Johnson earlier. They were going crazy in the chat when he said that because they're like, judicious. Do you think it was judicious to just go take a man and his wife in the middle of the night? That's why I said, what do we feel if a country tried to do that? If a country tried to take Trump and Melania, how do we feel about that? I'm not going to lie. Somebody in the chat earlier said that wouldn't happen, so we don't even have to worry about that. But what do you guys think? Do you think somebody would have the balls to try to come into our country and take Trump and Melania? I would love to know if you guys think that that could happen, because I don't know if I feel a country's ballsy enough to do something like that. I really don't know. If I had to put someone there, I would say, I don't know if I would say, I don't know. Who's crazier, Russia or China? They're both kind of off the wall. But you guys tell me. If a country was going to come in the U.S. and take Trump and Melania, what country do you think would do it? And actually be successful? Yeah, see, Max is like, can't be done. And a lot of people agree with you, Max. A lot of people in my earlier chat was like, nah, that's not going to happen. Yeah, you see, we got Aaron. Aaron's like, none. Christopher's like, none. Yeah, nobody, yep. Edom's like, never. A lot of people are like, yeah, nothing like this would ever happen. That's stupid. Nobody would ever do that or could do that. Exactly. But you had people asking, like, would the United States appreciate if this happened to us? And I'm like, listen, you're going to hate this response, but that ain't happening, Captain. It ain't happening to us.
there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, many, many Americans. Hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship. They'll be heading to, ultimately, New York. And then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. Ceaseless campaign for many years after his New York, and then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence.
Shout out to Jules. That was a good catch. I didn't catch it at first. Jules says Miami is in Florida, so how could it be Miami or Florida? I didn't catch that, so that's why I went back. That was a good catch. He's tired. Perhaps he's a lot of people went on President Trump during this press conference. I'm not gonna lie. They're like, he's incoherent. He's falling asleep. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over in particular the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang, Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers of people if they called police. They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete, and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago. A little bit of a different kind of a threat. But we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have on average two a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They're walking their daughters. They're walking their children, their wives. They walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. Been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of...
Now, Marco Rubio is going to talk in a little bit, but you guys tell me in the chat, do Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth look stressed out? Everybody's like, yo, Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio look stressed out. Trump is stressing these guys out.
Started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana, and we have done that. It was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks. New Orleans, it's down to almost nothing. And we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors would want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster, and the mayor was a disaster. But it knocked down crime. But we're pulling out of there when they need us. We'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on, where the head of the police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from being a crime-ridden mess to being one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned. Aragua. And they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans' lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst. They say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungare, what happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. It was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They sent from their mental institutions, they sent from their jails, prisons. They were drug dealers. They were drug kingpins. They sent everybody bad into the United States. But no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and sold American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill. And the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. They used those weapons last night, potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries. And not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal. But we've superseded it by a lot. By a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Doctrine. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy.
This is crazy because Marco Rubio, this looks like it's like painful for him. And Pete Hegseth, he just looks like, all right, President Trump, can you please hurry up, Mr. President? Shout out to you guys for telling me about the Echo. We're working on that now. So I know that's coming from the streaming software that I'm using. So shout out to you guys for pointing that out. I'm going to try to move locations to see if it gets better, but let's keep listening. I'm going to go forward so we can hear Marco Rubio in a minute if President Trump doesn't shut up, but I think he's almost done.
American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce, territory, and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs are, they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels, and we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America. But I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extinction should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until the United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone in Venezuela. People are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, it's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person in this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen.
All right, I'm going forward a little bit. Let's listen to somebody else. Hold on, guys.
For Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the President said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none. The best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry, and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such a man. And I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raising Kane, all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve. The most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the President said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance. Until they didn't, and until he didn't. He effed around, and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrent and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome...
I know some people are saying this was a hell of a way to bring in 2026. Like, this is what we started the world with. This is what we started the new year with, right? In the world, like the United States capturing President Maduro and his wife, right? For the oil, or was it the drugs? Or is it the oil? Or is it the drugs? Or is it the oil? Or is it the drugs?
Now our chairman, Raising Kane, to give a few more details about the operation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President. And good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States, and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted.
I want you guys to listen carefully because he goes into a lot of detail about the mission.
During the darkest hours of January 2nd and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that frankly only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our Special Operations Forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists. And we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years. Many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost